In this video, I'm going to redesign the new 2025 Mercedes S63 AMG, and I'm going to take some inspiration from my favorite S-Class, Bruno Sacco's masterpiece, the W140. He himself says that it's not a masterpiece in his eyes because he wanted to change one detail of the W140 that he could not get through to the engineers, and he didn't make that vision of his into a reality. We're going to talk about what detail that is on the W140, and of course then go into the W223, which is the current one, and redesign the S63, taking some inspiration from the more stately, more static looking, I would say, W140. I think it's a great looking vehicle. Before we do that though, let's have a look at all the generations here, going back, not all the generations, that would be a very long video, but going back to the 70s here of the W126. And this is where I think the boxiness started to come in for Mercedes, and this typical 3-box proportions that we have going on right here. You can see that we have basically two parallel lines like this for the bodywork, and then you have the first box right here, the second box being the greenhouse, and then the third box being this area right here. I do like the parallel lines that we have going all across the vehicle, because what this does is stretches out the length of this car, and you can see just how when we have 3 parallel or 4 parallel lines like this that goes all the way from the front to the back, it really stretches the design out and makes it feel like a very long car, longer than it actually is. And then we have this classic front fascia for Mercedes and the boxy design of the greenhouse with the thicker D-pillar in this area, looking beautiful. Now going into Bruno Sacco's, I'm not sure if Bruno Sacco actually designed the W126 as well. I'm not entirely sure. But here we have the W140, this one being the V12, the 600 S600. You can see how they added mass to the vehicle. This looks like, you know, the bumper feels like it's sort of separated from the body in the front and the back. We have some some pretty decent, you know, wheel gaps here, which we still have in the W140. But the W140 to me, compared to the 126, just got a lot more solid. It feels like they added a lot of muscle to this design. And this to me is the most, I would say, presidential S-Class still today. If I were to pick, you know, a car to be driven around in as a state official, I would request to bring a S600 W140 for me to be driven around in, because I think this has such a presence to it that we still have presence in the current S-Classes, but not compared to this. So the thing that Bruno Sacco wanted to do with this design, that the engineer said, no, we can't do it, it's just not possible, is if you look at the greenhouse here and the line of the greenhouse, we have this shoulder line going down here for the greenhouse. And Bruno Sacco, what he wanted to do, check this out, I'm going to show you exactly what his vision was. He wanted to take this area here, the lower section of the greenhouse, and what he wanted to do is just raise this up by a few inches. He thought the greenhouse looked like a aquarium or something like that. And if we just do that, I can see why he wanted to do it, because now it just becomes a much more proportionally correct vehicle. Here you can see the before and after, and what Bruno Sacco wanted to do with the S-Class. He wanted to move up the greenhouse, the shoulder line, a little bit, because he thought that there was too much glass. And I can clearly see why he wanted to do this. If we move up the greenhouse, it just becomes a much more proportionally, in my opinion, correct vehicle. But unfortunately, he could not get through. The engineer said that it's not possible to do that, so they had to keep the greenhouse in the position that it's at right now. And the thing about this is, because when the greenhouse sits this low, it almost has this upswing to it as well, so a small curvature to it. And you can see that the height of the side here becomes almost 50% body and then 50% greenhouse, and it doesn't create this dynamic feeling that Sacco wanted to have in his S-Class. But at the same time, it's still one of the best looking S-Classes out there on the market for sure throughout the generations. Then we have the W220, you can see the big change in design identity and design philosophy when we move into the 2000s. It's like it got a lot more fluid. I think this is a beautiful looking design, even though we lost the boxiness, for example, of the greenhouse. Now it became a lot more rounded. The headlights became rounded, and then we have the sharp taillights. I've always thought that was a very interesting solution, to have these very organic, super rounded headlights for the W220. And then if you look at the taillights, it doesn't get much sharper than this. So the contrast between the design philosophy of the taillights and the front end really clashed for me when I looked at this generation. Also the C-Class as well had the similar treatment, although in a smaller package. I love the wheel design here. Beautiful flowing lines, and we still have a lot of horizontal lines stretching out this design. In case you missed it, my 11-hour online class in design sketching is now only $47. If you have any desire to pick up the skill of sketching products using simple tools such as a big pen and cheap print paper, this is something you want to check out. Over the years, I've taught thousands of students from all around the world how to sketch cars and products, and most of them have seen amazing results from my classes. Analog Designer Pro Pack is the full bundle of all my classes I've released over the years, and it's yours for just $47. Check out everything that's included and see what my students have to say in the link in the description, or simply visit analogdesignerpropack.com. And then coming in to the W222, I think this is one of the most beautiful S-classes as well. I think the W140 and the 222 is probably my favorite S-classes, I would say. This is stunning. We have this dipping line in the shoulder line. We have the rounded greenhouse still as well intact, but now we have a more sharp headlight, or sort of a mix between sharp and organic, and we have the same philosophy now coming back in the taillights right there, with some very beautiful line flow. Look at this line in the bottom going into the bumper, have a clear connection. Even in the graphic feature here, it starts with the graphics feature in the lower section of the front end and then dips all the way back, so we have one single line that wraps around the entire car. Not a huge fan of these wheels, but this came with a bunch of different wheels, and this is for the S600. Now coming into today's S-Class right here. Again, this is this to me is a very beautiful design. I do think I prefer the 222 though, because this had a more solid rear end. I made a video on the 223 when it first came out, how the rear end looks too weak to me. It doesn't have the solid boss statement or present that I want to see in an S-Class. But the side view got a lot cleaner. We still have this beautiful shoulder line. The front end looks fantastic. Greenhouse still has the rounded shapes to it, which is totally fine, because that is the design language of Mercedes these days anyways. Now, looking at what I want to do here for the new S63, first of all, both of these vehicles are extremely beautiful in my opinion. I think the new S-Class looks great, specifically in the S63 trim, where you have these more, way more aggressive lower section down here. For example, the blacked out, not sure what they call it. It's like a $500 option to black everything out, the chrome pieces that goes around the windows, for example, and the grille, and that is something that I would definitely 100% pay $500 for, to have everything be blacked out, for sure, in an AMG. But what I want to do here, you see the separation between the top half and the lower half graphic with the bumper. I want to do a similar thing here. So what I'm going to do is just tighten up this grille. I want to have more of a this angle for the headlight here, more a traditional angle, similar to what we have here. You can see how it follows the grille here, this line, looking beautiful. We have a parallel lines right there, and we have the grille sitting in the same line as the headlight. That is what I want to go for in this redesign, and also change the grille, the lower section to be more a static line here with one single line, and everything happens underneath it. So remove this piece up here and lower it down a little bit, and maybe add some sharpness or some boxiness to the greenhouse. I'm not entirely sure how that is going to look, but with that said, let's jump in to the redesign here and let's see how this is going to turn out. So the 2025 Mercedes S63 AMG is an absolute beast of a machine. You have 791 horsepower plug-in hybrid, and you also have over 1,000 pound-feet of torque. 1,055 to be exact. And this is a combination of twin turbo 4-liter V8, and then you have the rear mounted electric motor as well. And now the S-Class now bears the E Performance badge that signifies AMG's sporty plug-in hybrid. The twin turbo V8 and electric motor combine for 791 horsepower. They say 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, but it has been tested under 3 seconds in the real world, which is insane to think about. This big of a sedan. It also does the quarter mile in just over 10 seconds. So this is, you could probably say that this is a 10-second car. You got air suspension and adaptive dampers, should give the S63 the ability to switch between a cloud-like ride and athletic handling. And I've experienced that myself. The drive modes of Mercedes are very distinct. I do like the drive modes because they feel like they are completely different. It totally switches up the car when you're going from, for example, eco or comfort or something like that to the sporty setting. So 0 to 60, they say 3.2 seconds, but it is in fact faster. Top speed limited to 180 miles per hour. The V8 yields 603 horsepower and 664 pound-feet on its own. It's fed through a 9-speed automatic transmission. You have the hot V setup with the turbocharger stuffed between the cylinder banks, claims to improve responsiveness. The V8 also features a belt-driven starter generator that is integrated into the 400-volt electric system. Now, the electric motor is mounted on the rear axle and is paired with a 2-speed transmission and an electronically controlled limited slip differential. The second gear engages at 87 miles per hour when the e-motor reaches its maximum speed of 13,500 RPM, and that will then drop the motor back to low RPM where it makes its peak power. So it all makes sense to have a 2-speed gearbox for this. Now, the electric motor can make 188 horsepower for up to 10 seconds or a continuous 94 horsepower. And while the gas and electric powertrains, they use separate transmissions here, as talked about, the all-wheel drive system allows for the e-motor power to be sent to the front wheel. So if you wanted to, you could drive, this is crazy to think about, but you could drive the S63 AMG as a all-wheel drive EV, but only for about up to 20 miles. You have a 13.1 kilowatt hour battery pack. You got 4 levels of regen braking, which is great to see. The lowest allows for coasting, while the highest permits one pedal driving and can return up to 90 kilowatts back into the battery. This is what I want to see for every single EV, for every single hybrid that has an e-motor in it. I want to have full regen braking, one pedal driving in every single vehicle. It just makes sense to me. So the new S63 comes with 7 different drive modes. The car starts silently in electric mode, which is also strange in a big, S63 AMG. You don't even hear the engine firing up when you have it in electric mode. It also has exterior speakers that plays a sound, low frequency sound on the exterior speakers up to 19 miles per hour to alert pedestrians of its presence because it is an EV. It's so quiet. Now, with the air springs and adaptive dampers, the AMG Ride Control Plus suspension allows the S63 to transforms from a sedate cruiser to a sports sedan, depending on the drive modes. It also lowers itself half an inch at 75 miles per hour. You got rear wheel steering as standard to make it nimble in corners. You got 21-inch wheels. You can spec this to be either a more luxurious spec, or you can have it be a very sinister looking spec, like the one we have here, all blacked out. Or you can have it in a lot of chrome as well, and white, for example. I definitely prefer the blacked out versions that we have here and that we're redesigning. So let's check out this redesign and let me show you exactly what happened here. So here we have the original and here we have the redesign right there. As I said, I wanted to take a lot of inspiration from the W140, make it a little bit more traditional looking. So the grille of this, the original one, it still has, I would say it still has a smiling grille, where the rest of the Mercedes lineup now has this 100% frowning grille like this. But this has still, I would say, it's a smiley grille. It sticks down all the way down here. I wanted to remove some of the height here and also have this line be in line with the headlight design like this. And of course, changing the lower section to remove this and have this be in a single line. You can see the result right here if we toggle before and after. becomes pretty clear what the changes are. I do think the original is still a very, very beautiful looking design. This was just a fun experiment for me. To just see what it could look like if it had more of some classic features and layouts for the graphics in the front end. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.